It's showtime.
Because the big questions in life are tough. Why are we here? Where are we from? Where are we going? But if people believe in asshole, douchey liars like you, we're never gonna find the real answer to those questions. You aren't just lying, you're slowing down the progress of all mankind. You do.
In your opinion, what are the three most important unanswered questions in biology?
How does consciousness evolve, and what is consciousness? How did life itself begin from non-life? What was the origin of the first self-replicating molecule, the first gene, in effect? That would be the second one. And the third one would be, why do we have sex? Why do we have sex?
Let me hear you say I pity the fool. Come on, man. Do you know how many times I've been asked to say that? Well, no more. I'm through. I'm never gonna say those stupid words again. I pity the fool.
I think I'm gonna need therapy now.
Now, what is the one thing in this free world, thanks to the press and television, that is the major interest of the young? It's sex.
This is John Orlando Jr. here, and I want to find out where babies come from. Where do babies come from?
Vagina.
I'm gonna go with babies. Babies come from Walmart. Hey, probably not too long from now you'll be able to get one at Walmart.
Probably a Walmart adoption agency.
I thought they came from Walmart.
Where do babies come from?
The pits of hell.
I agree.
What is it, really?
Where do babies come from?
Well, you know, I have three of them, and I could really explain it to you. You see, when a man and woman are in love, when a man in love with woman, or even if they're not in love, when they have something called sex, you know, the man inserts his penis into the lady's vagina, and when he ejaculates inside of her, the sperm will flow through her uterus up into her ovaries, and the sperm connected to the ovaries, and that's when the genesis of babies begins.
Shut up, fool!
Well, the reason you want to know about it is because it's a mystery. What is a mystery? Well, a mystery is a sacrament. As a matter of fact, the Greek word mysterion is the Latin word sacrament, and the English sacramentum, and the English word sacrament. Now, what is a sacrament? And then we'll understand sex. Every sacrament, or every mystery, has two elements. First, physical. Secondly, spiritual. Something that is visible, something that is invisible. A word is a sacrament because there's something audible, and then there's something invisible about it, namely the meaning of the word.
One important active area is the origin of sex and why we have sex at all. It's controversial and interesting and unsolved. Well, the mystery there is that on the view of the selfish gene, every animal is trying to maximize the number of genes that it passes on. And so mixing half your genes with those of a sexual partner seems like an odd thing to do.
Maybe.
And on the face of it, it's throwing away half your genes with every child you have. So it needs an explanation, and various explanations have been suggested.
How did we become the only species that becomes more prosperous as it becomes more populous? The size of the blob in this graph represents the size of the population, and the level of the graph represents GDP per capita. I think to answer that question, you need to understand how human beings bring together their brains and enable their ideas to combine and recombine, to meet and indeed to mate. In other words, you need to understand how ideas have sex.
So let's talk about it.
Yo, I don't think we should talk about this. Come on, why not? People might misunderstand what we're trying to say, you know? But that's a part of life. Come on.
Let's talk about sex, baby. Let's talk about you and me. Let's talk about all the good things and the bad things that may be. Let's talk about sex. Let's talk about sex.
This is the woman of all women. She ignores us, but she is inignorable. You see, she needs not a man, but they come. Why? Is it how she stands? Is it how she sits? Is it how she reclines?
The view that parasites are the most important selection pressure bearing on creatures, and that parasites, because they are, especially bacteria, evolving so incredibly rapidly, the genes that any one individual needs in order to survive in the present generation of parasites may not be the genes that are needed in future generations. So there needs to be an extremely rapid turnover, extremely rapid changing of gene pools, and sex may be, well, sex certainly will do that, and the only question is whether the pressure from parasites is sufficiently great to compensate the so-called twofold cost of sex, the fact that sexual reproduction does throw away half the genes in each generation.
Uh-oh, retard alert! Retard alert, class!
I know you guys think of yourself as humans, and this is sort of how I think of you. And so this man is supposed to represent a generic human being, and all of the circles in that man are all of the cells that make up your body. So there's about 1 trillion human cells that make each one of us who we are and able to do all the things that we do. But you have 10 trillion bacterial cells in you or on you at any moment in your life. So 10 times more bacterial cells than human cells on a human being. And so of course it's the DNA that counts. So here's all the A, T, G's, and C's that make up your genetic code and give you all your charming characteristics. So you have about 30,000 genes. Well, it turns out you have 100 times more bacterial genes playing a role in you or on you all of your life. And so at the best, you're 10% human, more likely about 1% human, depending on which of these metrics you like. So I know you think of yourself as human beings, but I think of you as 90 or 99% bacterial.
So this is an Anglo-Saxon disease, and it's nothing to do with us.
The only question is whether the pressure from parasites is sufficiently great to compensate the so-called twofold cost of sex, the fact that sexual reproduction does throw away half the genes in each generation.
Want to know what he's really thinking?
Women can do anything men can do, except math, chess, running, jumping, lifting stuff, fixing things, making money, hockey, surfing, driving, making decisions, being tall, taking out the garbage, tipping, fishing, being funny on purpose, reading a map, listening to good bands, writing, running the country, inventing anything important, or being fun to hang out with. Don't get me wrong, I love women, I just think they should drink from a separate water fountain. Okay, actually, women may be even better than men, but we'll never really know, since they're swinging at bigger balls, playing from closer tees, doing push-ups from their knees, taking half the Beatles' money, bitches, please! Thank you.
Cut out the jibber jabber. Don't be babbling like a fool. Say what you got to say. That's all. Then shut your dang pie hole.
Say the so-called twofold cost of sex.
Haters gonna hate. Me gusta. Hey, girl, you looking good. You wanna come back to my place and derp? Wait, what? You're leaving me? Forever alone!
Let's talk about all the good things and the bad things that make me.
I love you. You don't have to tell me that you love me right away or anything. I just have to let you know that I love you.
So, between spending the next 2 hours listening to you cry, or the next 2 hours you sucking my I'll choose the latter. I love you too.
Don't decoy, avoid, or make void the topic, because that ain't gonna stop it. Now, talk about...
How does evolution do cumulative combinatorial things? Well, it uses sexual reproduction. In an asexual species, if you get two different mutations in different creatures, a green one and a red one, then one has to be better than the other, one goes extinct for the other to survive. But if you have a sexual species, then it's possible for an individual to inherit both mutations from different lineages. So what sex does is it enables the individual to draw upon the genetic innovations of the whole species. It's not confined to its own lineage.
Apparently, 175,000 years ago in the Rift Valley of Africa, there were about 10,000 anatomically modern human beings walking the grasslands, our ancestors. The geneticists located one database woman. It's a database line. Apparently, her genes passed to everyone in this room tonight. The other ladies didn't make it. Gets even more strange. They located a single male. This is a database line for genetics. They call him the Y chromosome Adam. Apparently a fairly potent guy. His genes passed to everyone in this room. So here's the news. 6.8 billion people at various stages of consciousness. Theological, ideological, psychological, dramaturgical. We're all fighting with each other with different ideas about the world. And guess what? We all came from two people. The Bible got this one right. We could have come from many, but the point is, we have to begin thinking as an extended family. We have to broaden our sense of identity. We don't lose the old identities of nationhood and our religious identities, and even our blood ties. But we extend our identity so we can think of the human race as our fellow sojourners, and our other creatures here as part of our evolutionary family, and the biosphere as our community. We have to rethink the human narrative. If we are truly Homo empathicus, then we need to bring out that core nature. Because if it doesn't come out and it's repressed by our parenting, our educational system, our business practice and government, the secondary drives come. The narcissism, the materialism, the violence, the aggression. If we can have a global debate, let it start here from the British Royal Society for the Arts, which apparently you're doing, to begin rethinking human nature, to bring out our empathic sociability so that we can rethink the institutions of society and prepare the groundwork for an empathic civilization.
And that's what we've done, because we're all working for each other. Where we were able to draw upon specialization and exchange to raise each other's living standards. Now, you do get other animals working for each other too. Ants are a classic example. Workers work for queens and queens work for workers. But there's a big difference, which is that it only happens within the colony. There's no working for each other across the colonies. And the reason for that is because there's a reproductive division of labor. That is to say, they specialize with respect to reproduction. The queen does it all. In our species, we don't like doing that. It's the one thing we insist on doing for ourselves, is reproduction. Even in England, we don't leave reproduction to the Queen. So when did this habit start, and how long has it been going on, and what does it mean? Well, I think probably the oldest version of this is probably the sexual division of labor, but I've got no evidence for that. It just looks like the first thing we did was work male for female and female for male. In all hunter-gatherer societies today, there's a foraging division of labor between, on the whole, hunting males and gathering females. It isn't always quite that simple, but there's a distinction between specialized roles for males and females. And the beauty of this system is that it benefits both sides. The woman knows that, in the Hadza's case here, digging roots to share with men in exchange for meat, she knows that all she has to do to get access to protein is to dig some extra roots and trade them for meat. And that she doesn't have to go on an exhausting hunt and try and kill a warthog. And the man knows that he doesn't have to do any digging to get roots. All he has to do is make sure that when he kills a warthog, it's big enough to share some. And so both sides raise each other's standards of living through the sexual division of labor. When did this happen? We don't know, but it's possible that Neanderthals didn't do this. They were a highly cooperative species. They were a highly intelligent species. Their brains, on average, by the end, were bigger than yours and mine in this room today. They were imaginative. They buried their dead. They had language, probably because we know they had the FOXP2 gene of the same kind as us, which was discovered here in Oxford. And so it looks like they probably had linguistic skills. They were brilliant people. I'm not dissing the Neanderthals. But there's no evidence of a sexual division of labor. There's no evidence of gathering behavior by females. It looks like the females were cooperative hunters with the men.
Sweet Jesus.
Think of it.
It looks like the females were cooperative hunters with the men.
God intended that in marriage, the husband stands for Christ. The bride stands for the church. Does that mean that the man is the head of the woman in the sense of domination? No. The man is the head of the woman in the sense of sacrifice. So as Christ gave himself up for his spouse, his bride, which is the church, so the husband sacrifices himself for the wife. Now that's the spiritual side of marriage and of sex. It therefore refers to love, human love between husband and wife, the love for God, the love for the church. One of the reasons why it is very difficult for parents ever to teach you the complete mystery of sex is this. They find it very hard, they can communicate the physical side, that's nothing. But to communicate to you the mystery, the deep, profound love that is involved, that is something that is almost impossible to describe. The poet said, "Would that I could utter the thoughts that arise in me when there was love in his heart." And therefore there will always be a difficulty in the way of explaining to you the mystery. Now, this is what it is. It's God's gift, his creative power, and it's not to be used until God gives the power. Now, for example, where's my Lieutenant Fitzgerald? He's around here someplace. Well, now, Lieutenant Fitzgerald has been with me every day since I've been here. Suppose I took his uniform and put it on. Well, first of all, it wouldn't fit me. But suppose it fitted me. Well, I would then go out in the street in his uniform and begin directing traffic. I would have no authority to direct traffic, even though I was wearing the uniform. I have to be empowered by civil authority to wear that uniform and direct traffic. And so you have to be empowered to use this mystery. You cannot use it up and by yourself.
There's another way that orgasm might boost fertility. This one involves men. Sperm that sit around in the body for a week or more start to develop abnormalities that make them less effective at headbanging their way into the egg. British sexologist Roy Levin has speculated that this is perhaps why men evolved to be such enthusiastic and frequent masturbators. He said, "If I keep tossing myself off, I get fresh sperm being made," which I thought was an interesting theory. So now you have an evolutionary excuse.
A little girl was once asked, "What are you going to do when you get as big as your mother?" And the little girl said, "Diet." Now you see, you laughed at that. Now why did you laugh at that? If for example, a horse heard that joke, the horse wouldn't give a horse laugh. Why do you laugh? Because in addition to hearing the sound that a horse would also hear, you got meaning out of it. You got purpose.
All right. I'm going to show you a couple of images from a very diverting paper in the the Journal of Ultrasound in Medicine. I'm going to go way out on a limb and say that it is the most diverting paper ever published in the Journal of Ultrasound in Medicine. The title is Observations of In Utero Masturbation. Okay, now on the left, you can see the hand, that's the big arrow, and the penis on the right, the hand hovering. And over here we have, in the words of radiologist Israel Meisner, the hand grasping the penis in a fashion resembling masturbation movement. Bear in mind, this was an ultrasound, so it would have been moving images, Cheese crumbs spread before a pair of copulating rats will distract the female, but not the male. Thank you very much. Thanks.
Okay, my last question. This is probably going to be the most simplest one for you to answer, but what if you're wrong?
Well, what if I'm wrong? I mean, anybody could be wrong. We could all be wrong about the flying spaghetti monster and the pink unicorn and the flying teapot. You happen to have been brought up, I would presume, in the Christian faith.
This is probably going to be the most simplest one for you to answer, but what if you're wrong?
Well, what if I'm wrong? I mean, anybody could be wrong. We could all be wrong about the flying spaghetti monster and the pink unicorn and the flying teapot. You happen to have been brought up, I would presume, in the Christian faith.
My way would be if I felt that there were students there who, indeed, he did say that some of his colleagues were frightened of teaching evolution because the moment they said they were going to teach evolution, they got yelled at by some of the students. And I said, well, my reaction to that would be just to throw them out because they're wasting the time of the other students. However, I did see his point.
The Banana Man's partner, Kirk Cameron, was supposed to be debating with me on the Bill O'Reilly show. I was invited to go on the Bill O'Reilly show. Indeed, I did go on the Bill O'Reilly show. It was recorded this afternoon. And they phoned up and said, would I mind if Kirk Cameron came on as well? And they explained that he was the Banana Man's sidekick, the one who grins to one side in that Monty Python sketch where they do the, you know. You study a well-made banana, that one. Anyway, I for once departed from my usual rule, and my publisher persuaded me it was a good thing. I said, all right, I'll do it. And then the next thing I knew, Kirk Cameron had withdrawn. Maybe he had a very good reason. I'm not saying anything.
What do you think is the possibility that intelligent design might turn out to be the answer to some issues in genetics or in evolution?
It could come about in the following way. It could be that at some earlier time, somewhere in the universe, a civilization evolved by probably some kind of Darwinian means to a very, very high level of technology, and designed a form of life that they seeded onto perhaps this planet. Now, that is a possibility, and an intriguing possibility. And I suppose it's possible that you might find evidence for that if you look at the details of biochemistry and molecular biology. You might find a signature of some sort of designer.
Wait a second. Richard Dawkins thought intelligent design might be a legitimate pursuit?
And that designer could well be a higher intelligence from elsewhere in the universe. Well, but that higher intelligence would itself have had to have come about by some explicable or ultimately explicable process. It couldn't have just jumped into existence spontaneously. That's the point.
So Professor Dawkins was not against intelligent design, just certain types of designers, such as God.
But
If this is intelligently designed, like say your book is intelligently designed.
It is, by the way.
But the universe is not intelligently designed. Yeah. Then you're saying that the universe just naturally came into existence, continues existence through natural laws of nature, through physics, the thermodynamics, the laws of gravity and energy, produced you eventually, and then through you produced this book that proves that it has no natural intelligent design.
Let's take that step. Let's take that step by step.
Oh, I don't think we have time for
you
step
were
by
right.
step. You can either surrender or we can go.
As far as when you got onto life. Life's a very special thing. Life starts naturally, and it then increases in complexity by slow, gradual degrees. That's Darwinian natural selection.
That's because God breathed into it.
And finally, you will often hear among yourselves, boys and girls talking and say, I don't believe anymore. I'm an atheist. I just can't believe in God and life. Do not argue with me. I will give you a rule that will help you very much in life. Never pay very much attention to what people say. Pay attention to why they say it. What are they covering up? I was instructing a stewardess on an international airline. And I got up to the subject of confession, and she said, now I'll never go to confession after hearing this instruction. I refuse to become a Catholic. But I said, take one more lesson. And then at the end of that instruction, you may discontinue. Well, at the end of the next instruction, she was in a veritable creed. She shrieked, screamed, let me out of here. Now I'll never be a Catholic. I said, my dear girl, there's no proportion whatever between what you have heard and the way you're acting. Have you had an abortion? She said, yes. She finished instructions. I later witnessed the marriage and baptized the baby. Do not pay attention to what people say. Why do they say it? Why was she attacking confession? It was her way of escaping her inner guilt, blaming it onto the sacrament. And when you hear young people say, I'm atheist and so forth, do not argue about their faith. Look into their morals. How are they living? That's the important thing.
Let's put our dancing shoes and boogaloo.